to go on and jump into my talk. The talk is titled The Money Maze, Navigating Financial Accounting. It is targeted at councils that are sub 25,000 precepts, so the smaller councils. So the things I'm going to cover is the maze, the confusion, the overwhelming, ness of taking on this role. Things that you don't have to worry about. That's kind of a key thing I want you to take away today, because there'll be a lot of things that you may think you need to worry about. You do not need to. How to get started and how to create a rhythm of the council to get through your financial year. So when you start, you probably start hearing about the AGAR. This is probably this end of year goal where you've got to do your account statement for your year end. And, that can be quite a stressful time, and you might not know how to get there, so it is this maze that you've got to find yourself through there. And in order to support you, you might be Googling and getting various documents. Could it be anything from ones in the bottom left-hand corner here, the Local Gov Act, Local Council, the Yellow Bible there. Then it might be the JPAG, definitely the JPAG, and the now Model Financial Regulations. And then there might be other documents that are related, regulations related to managing data, such as Data Protection Act and UK GDPR. So it can be overwhelming when you're looking at producing your financial accounts and administering your financial accounts. There's so much information out there. It can be quite scary. Likewise, you might have counsellors or colleagues that know someone or are fairly knowledgeable of accounting practices. They might even be qualified. You'd be hearing about other regulations such as making tax digital. You hear about accrual accounting, double entry bookkeeping, balance sheets, adjustments, depreciation, amortization, all these kind of terms related to accounting. And you're thinking, well, should I be doing that? Should I be concerned about that? You might be questioned about it from some of your counsellors or fellow staff members. A lot of this stuff, particularly if you're a smaller one, you do not need to worry about. So first thing is you do not need to do, as a small parish council, in fact, if you're under 200k, you do not need to do INE, income and expenditure accrual-based accounting. This is only required if you have income or expenditure that exceeds £200,000 over a 3-year period. So all these things that are mentioned on this sheet, you do not need to worry about if you're under 200k, because it makes your life way more complicated. Financial accounts at parish and town councils, if you're particularly under 200k, should be and are really simplistic, and they're on a receipts and payments basis. You also do not need to get, for sub 25k, you do not need to worry about getting an external audit. You will have to get an internal audit, but you can self-certify you to be exempt from that. And then also there's, for the sub 25k, section 5, you don't actually need a website to publish your documents, your AGAR. You can do it on any kind of community site. So before we get into the kind of the detail, let's think about when you first start as a clerk and what would your onboarding look like. Obviously, ideally you would want to hand over from a previous clerk or an RFO. Sometimes that does not happen, but if you have, that's really good. Sometimes that would be really well structured handover with good documentation of everything. Sometimes it'll be just verbal and a fairly unstructured, and you'll have to kind of fill in the gaps. Then the second thing we advise you doing is review the financial regs. You should have financial regulations. You can use the model financial regs from now to do that. You just adjust them for yourself. It's a really good template, but you should really read through those. And if you don't understand them, you can ask questions on forums such as Clerk's Corner, etc., or your fellow councillors. Then you need access to stuff. Particularly that's important, if you're doing the handover before that clerk or RFO leaves, or maybe it's a councillor that's interim taking control of things, you need access to the financial system, whatever that may be. We'll talk more about tools and software later. You need to be a signatory on the bank account. You need to get access, not only the signatory, you need to get, second step is get access to online banking. Then I would then look at the accounts, review the budget, see where you're at, check if all the transactions are up to date. If it's, is it August now? Yes, it's August. To have a look when the latest transactions, if August up to date, sometimes it might be transactions haven't been added for months and months. Check when the last bank reconciliation was done, check when the VAT reclaim was last done. So all these kind of things, you can just kind of get a feel of where you're at right now. And I think a really important thing is review your budget codes. So Hannah produced these budget codes, so cost center and cost codes, which is kind of, Hannah's been working in the industry for many years. Not only she's a qualified accountant, but she's very familiar with town and parish councils. She's, based on all her experience, she's produced these sets of cost codes. We can share with them afterwards. But really, if you have this building blocks in place and you have well-structured cost center cost codes for your transactions, your receipts and payment transactions, then everything else is going to be much more smoother downstream. Getting this data structure in place is super important. And really, for a small council, you only need 2 cost centers as your ins and outs, your income and expenditure, or we refer it to receipts and payments in the practitioner's guide. And then most of the time, because small councils, they don't have massive income streams, it's normally about payments. So you can see how Hannah's broken this down, where you've got your main income, which is your preset, maybe grants, bank interest, VAT refund, and other income. And then the payments is further break down into more detail, because you're more likely to be spending money rather than making money income, which is quite common. So review that. Once you've got this in place, this is my top tip. You might be halfway through the year, might be a problem, but I just crack. It's always best, advice is to review your structure at the beginning of financial year, but I would just crack on and just, restructure things straight away, if you can do that, if the software allows that. After that, it's creating a rhythm of the council, so the rhythm of your business, your core workflows. And I've just broken that down into things you need to do every week, things you need to do every month, and things you have to do every quarter. I'm going to go into more detail on these. There are annual goals, but deadlines, these are the only real hard deadlines that you have to meet from a regulatory point of view. But we're not going to talk about those today, because these will become easy. That end goal of creating your annual account statement for on June the 30th for Section 2 AGAR basically will be really easy to do if you just take care of your weekly, monthly and quarterly workflows. Then obviously you got your annual precept submission. So normally around January, depends on your council. But again, if you take care of, you have your good cost code structures, your budget code structures in place, you take care of all the workflows I'm going to talk about now, you'll be in great shape for that, and there'll be no stress for you. So going into weekly. So basically weekly is just keeping basic bookkeeping. It's recording your transactions, your ins and outs, money that comes in, money that goes out. Most of the time, money will be going out. The most simplistic things that you need to capture on those transactions, obviously, if it's a receipt or a payment, the date, the bank account, the description, the budget heading or budget code, the supplier who you're paying, and then the invoice date if you've got one of those. And then really important at this stage, you do need to capture the VAT, because you're going to want to reclaim that later. Other things that you need to consider that are pertinent, because these kinds of basic record keeping, that can apply to any business, whatever business you're in, whatever organization. But things that are pertinent to town and parish councils, you do want to flag up any of those that are S137 payments. You do need to consider adding your power used for spend. And then also you need to capture, which is actually not you need to remember to capture the VAT reg number for your supplier. Just do it there and then when you're on the phone or in that email, because you don't want to be doing it months ahead or when you actually need to do your VAT reclaim. So just if you take care of this and you have your decent cost code structure, your budget code structure, you are on for a winner. You know, it'll be everything, you know, is going to be much easier downstream. Okay, so then on a monthly basis, well, this really aligns to your actual council meetings. So that might be monthly, bi-monthly. Some people do, councils do quarterly, but normally it's bi-monthly for the smaller councils. You need to, you know, do your bank reconciliations. So you've been keeping a record of all your receipts and payments, nice record. And then you need to get your bank statement, go, yes, and cross them all off and go, yeah, that's cash, you know, that all reconciles. Sometimes it might identify discrepancies, and that's where you're able to deal with them, you know. So you might see a transaction on your bank statement that doesn't exist. Maybe you forgot it in your bookkeeping, or likewise, you might have something on your bookkeeping that doesn't correspond with the actual bank statement. So that's a process. And again, you want to do that every month, because if you're dealing it months ahead, you'll have that memory of it, you know, and it's kind of near-term memory. If you're dealing with months in the future, then, you know, you've lost all that kind of look on it. You're going to have to go through emails and all kinds of things, maybe, or chat messages or post, you know, to work out what's going on. And then you do need to, which is regulatory compliance, you do need to produce this bank reconciliation report, which I believe is signed up by the chairperson. And then, you know, preparing for that monthly meeting, you create the agenda, and you've got to add all your payments that you need for approval to the agenda. There'll be a whole bunch of automatic approvals, which I believe you still add to the agenda, or the minutes, just to say that they're automatically approved. We've heard stories of people not getting paid their salary because their payment wasn't approved, when it actually didn't need approval, because that's you know, existing direct debits and salaries are automatically approved. You don't need to get them approved to get paid. And then the actual payments that need approval will be new invoices and back payments. I think sometimes there's you know, depending on your own financial regs, you know, there'll be a cap on that, and then record those approvals in the minutes. So that's your monthly work done. So then it's coming up to quarterly. Quarterly is really it's taking a step back now, you know, and having a look at your financial position, you know, see where you are in terms of your budget versus your actual, and ideally breaking it down to cost center or even cost code to see where you're at, because, you know, it may look good, or your financial position may look really good, but actually you're overspending on a particular cost code. So that's a good time just to take a step back and have a look at your financial position. And, you know, that's an opportunity maybe to spend, you know, see that you can spend more money or cut back because you might not hit your budget for that year. Then, yeah, every quarter we do advise, you know, to do your actual VAT reclaim. Smaller councils won't have actually a lot of that, so most of the time you will be doing it annually. If your VAT is under £100, then you have to do it annually, not quarterly, and it has to be whole months. We find a lot of councils actually not doing their VAT reclaim. You know, and if you are in that position, you should be doing it, because it's so kind of easy to do. And you're getting that money, you're missing out on that income from that VAT reclaim. You can go back 4 years to do it. But again, you know, it's only really possible to go back 4 years if you've been having really good bookkeeping. It'd be quite a big headache if you haven't got good bookkeeping in place. You haven't been tracking the net versus the VAT on those transactions, and you don't have the VAT reg number of your supplier. So that could be quite a difficult thing, or easy if you've got good bookkeeping. So moving on, and not moving on. So basically that's it. Take care of, you know, those are the rhythms of the business. And I kind of use these images here. The weekly is just yourself taking care of it, dancing on your own. And then monthly, you're dancing with your team. You're going to those meetings, getting approvals, everyone's agreeing, we're all moving forward. And then quarterly, you're all synchronized, and to see if you know, your budget versus actual is balanced and everything's good. So you should be happy. You know, when it comes to producing your AGAR, you've got all your transactions bank reconciliation done, you've all signed your cost codes, it'll all feed into those boxes quite easy if it's all done. So then everything's basically planned. It shouldn't be stressful. The only kind of exception to it is, emergency situations where emergency payment might need to be made for whatever reason, and that will only require approval outside you can get that approved outside the council meetings. And only yourself as a clerk or RFO and the chairperson needs approval for that. So that covers off the procedures and workflows related to accounting. I'm going to go into tools now. So software options. Really, if you're not using software and you're still on paper-based systems, just going to have a little sip of coffee. That is a problem, from all kinds of reasons. And some of them will be evident when I go into a little bit on the spreadsheets. So a lot of the smaller councils will be on spreadsheets. There's all kinds of different tools to different kind of ways that you can do your financial accounts. So one is you outsource it and you hire an accountancy firm. You just send everything over to them and they do everything for you. They'd have to be knowledgeable, obviously, of kind of particular requirements and regulations around local councils. Most of the time for the small councils, we find you've created your own bespoke spreadsheets, or you've taken on inherited a spreadsheet, or you're using a template. Might be an option is using commercial software such as QuickBooks, Xero, and Sage. And then you can use industry software such as Scribe, Realtus, Advantage. So I'm going to go into more detail on the spreadsheets and industry software. Generally speaking, outsourcing, based on the kind of income that you have, you're under 25k, it's just not going to be financially beneficial for you to outsource it. The fees attached to that. Commercial software, it doesn't have all these products. They don't understand the AGAR, the annual statement, or anything like that. They don't understand assets. They don't have the particular reporting requirements for town and parish councils. So they're generally not fit for purpose for town and parish councils. Maybe if you're a very big town council where you're almost like a business, then you might want to run more commercially orientated software. But certainly for the small ones, it's too complicated for small council. You just need to keep that basic cash book going. You'll be overwhelmed by all the technical jargon that I highlighted before related to it. So spreadsheets, if you are, you really need to think about these questions if you're running spreadsheets, because you're taking on a lot of responsibility that you're not aware of when you're using spreadsheets. So I've got some questions here that I created, then you need to think about the answers to that, So first thing, there's 3 categories around accuracy and efficiency, collaboration and business continuity, compliance, security, and data requests. So there's 3 categories. So accuracy and efficiency, how are you ensuring that all your formulas and everything are error-free and there's no human errors in there? We have spoke to many auditors, as well as customers that we onboard that were on spreadsheets. Generally, when we onboard customers from spreadsheets, we're always finding errors in their spreadsheets. So there's been loads of scenarios when calculations are incorrect, and that's misappropriating, reporting the use of public funds and how they've been spent or income that you've made. So what procedures do you have in place? What oversight do you have in place to ensure that there is no errors in your spreadsheets? And again, we found errors that in spreadsheets that clerks and RFOs were not aware of, and they've been in there for years. Anyway, yeah. So, and then you've got to think about like the manual data efficiency. How does that impact your kind of productivity, and that how you are taking the responsibility of keeping up with financial regs all the time? How does that get handled? Then we're moving to collaboration and business continuity. How do you share data with your members? How do you collaborate how do you know what version is the truth? How do you support overwriting? How do you manage access and permissions and all these kinds of things? Giving remote and secure access. What we find is there's just lots of copies of spreadsheets everywhere. and sometimes you don't know which is the right version, etc. And then another issue is if you're responsible for financial accounts, if you're sick or on your leave, on holiday, how does someone take over from that? Then on to compliance and security. You're also responsible for that. You're responsible for keeping everything up to date, ensuring you've got virus protection in place. You have disaster recovery measures in place. We again hear about stories about whole laptops getting corrupt and losing everything. You need to keep all your software up to date with security patches, etc. And then, if you have, from a compliance point of view, are your GDPR compliant? If you had a freedom of information request, if you had a right to be forgotten request, would you be able to handle that? Particularly if you're emailing, sharing spreadsheets and they're on different people's laptops, they've been downloaded, they're in different inboxes, councillors left, and they've still got the data on their laptop, all these kinds of things. Would you know where all the data is, which is because there's so many different copies. So those are all things you need to think about, even though you're small, you need to think about, because there's more responsibility there outside just doing the accounting. We did do a blog. We'll share that. I think, could you share that on the chat, Jessica? 10 tips for managing financial accounts using spreadsheets at parish and town councils. Shelley did that blog for us. Have a look at that. It's got a whole bunch of tips in there if you are deciding to use spreadsheets to ensure that you can answer all these questions and have related to it. Moving on to, so the other area is having industry specific accounting software. So we're actually launching a special version of Scribe accounts. We're calling it the basic plan for small town and parish councils. It has everything in there to ensure you meet regs, ensures you're compliant, ensures you've got data protection in place, ensures you've got business continuity. So all these questions are basically answered, as well as all the requirements in terms of what we went through in terms of the actual processes around financial management. So it's basically all for £12 a month, including that. You don't need to worry about anything, and it also comes pre-set up. So you have all your cost codes and everything in there. You just need to start adding transactions. It's literally that easy. Like adding your transactions there. You've got all your cost codes, receipts and payments there. You've got your cost codes, and then you've got your VAT and everything. You just add them in there and you can get all your reporting. I'm not going to go into too much detail on like the actual doing a full demo on that, but yes. We're doing a free trial on it. If you want to know more, we'll share that with you. You go to Tiny Euro Scribe free trials, 1 month free trial, and basically you just log in. Everything's set up. You just add your transactions. You do your bank reconciliation. You get all the reporting for free, all the budget reports, 3-month quarterly reports, 3-year reports, etc. It's all taken care of. So that's about it, really. Hopefully, we've done 30 minutes. That's perfect.